right there, and it should be coming up in just a second. Yeah.
Alrighty.
So we'll be getting that notification in just a moment. Yep. It says Boxcast is scheduled to start in less than 1 minute. So, Ty, we are going to be live with sweet people all over the Upper Cumberland within just a minute. And so, waiting to
Fantastic.
see that come through.
Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you great. Can you hear me
Okay.
okay?
Yeah, just fine. I'm sitting a little further away from my laptop microphone than I normally do, so I
Mm
just wasn't sure.
hmm. Mm hmm. Yeah. Sounds great. All right. Haven't seen the notification yet. Live stream is so much fun. So it should be live streaming at about this moment. And interview with Q&A says scheduled to start in less than 1 minute. So yeah, that live stream. Oh, there it is. It showed up on Facebook. And so I'm going to switch over there right this moment. Yeah, it looks like we are live. I've got it muted. Great. I'm going to pull it up and make sure that we can respond to any comments as they come. Oh, hey, there's Janet in the background of the live stream. And the live stream is about a minute behind
Yep.
what you and I are actually seeing, Ty, right now.
Okay.
And so for anybody that's joining us on Facebook Live, hi, Janet.
Hi.
So for anybody that is joining us on Facebook Live or our website or on our YouTube or on our Twitter stream, we are so glad that you're here. There's been a few changes as far as coronavirus goes within the area. And so Dr. Ty Webb and I wanted to have a little interview and question and answer session. So if you, as our friends out in the public, have questions and you want to ask it in the Facebook feed at Central Church of Christ, you guys are welcome to ask those questions and we'll try to answer those, let Dr. Ty Webb answer those for you. And we're grateful to have Dr. Ty Webb with us. If any of you remember, Dr. Ty Webb and Dr. Lindsay Yoder joined us on March 13th for a live question and answer session, or at least a one that we streamed. And that was a great interview. We had a lot of fun with that. And that was at the beginning of the coronavirus pandemic, and things have changed just a little bit. And so, Dr. Webb, for anybody that's not familiar with who you are, I put a link to your bio on the Cumberland Family Care website in this feed's comment section. But why don't you go ahead and tell them where you're at, what a pink flamingo is doing in the background, and just a little bit about yourself and why they might want to listen to you as you talk about coronavirus pandemic.
Well, I'm a family physician. Been in Sparta, Tennessee, about 23 years after training at UT, and so been in Tennessee a while. And don't know that I'm an expert on coronavirus by any means, but do deal with the health implications of it on a regular basis. And yeah, that first one that we did with Lindsay seems like an eternity ago now. It's hard to believe that was only a couple of months ago.
Mm-hmm.
So much has changed. It for a while it was about every 12 hours the information seemed to be changing. Thankfully, the pace of that has slowed down a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And so here we are on Memorial Day weekend, talking again. So I'm at my house, sitting in the backyard. A little tree frog just jumped up on the chair next to me. The dogs are roaming around, so you might see them. The flamingo has been inflated, so the kids are hoping to jump on that and enjoy the sun tomorrow.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Great. Now, I just lost a little bit of your feed, Ty. You have paused on my video. And so, uh, Ty, keep talking for us for just a second. We may have lost your stream. Yeah. And I'm afraid we have lost Dr. Ty Webb's stream. And Ty, you may have to shift and move a little bit closer to your modem, your router in your house, and or wherever that access point is at this moment. But we're going to try and get Dr. Ty Webb back on our live stream video at this time. And so while we're waiting on Dr. Ty Webb's stream to get back, for a lot of you, if you use Zoom, you may know, yep, Ty popped out right there, and we're going to try and get him back. So you guys may know that if you want to continue to use Zoom, you're going to have to update it. And I did that on my desktop PC earlier this week. Oh, here comes Dr. Ty. And so,
Hey, I'm back.
hey,
So I
you're
don't
back.
know where I left off.
Hey, no worries. I was just telling everybody while we waited on you to come back in that I had to update on my PC the Zoom app, and you couldn't update on your iPad. You actually had to re-download Zoom. And so
I
with
did.
the new security protocol that Zoom is putting in, which our church has not had any issues over the 2 months we've used it.
Right.
But we jumped on some of the security really early on. So Zoom has put out another update, and if any of you who are following us are Zoom users, you may have to follow and do those updates. I think Monday is when they're requiring that update to be done. But it sounds like you already had to tonight just to get on this one, Ty.
Yeah, the iPad required it. Interestingly, my iPhone did not. I could have joined on it, but I prefer using the iPad. So
I
anyway,
gotcha.
weird.
I gotcha. So you left off saying you were not an expert, but you do deal with family care.
Yes, yes. Okay. So I wasn't sure where it left off. I know the screen froze, so I just kept talking. So
I
I'll
appreciate
pick back up where we were. So my expertise is family medicine. That's what I'm trained in, and I do a lot of population health management as well as part of that, and I'll explain that in a moment.
it.
Been in Sparta for 23 years, trained at UT, and love Tennessee. Grew up in Indiana, so I guess I'm not native to Tennessee, but boy, I sure feel like it after having lived here for 30 years. Do love this area. Um, and so family medicine is what I do primarily, but myself and another physician, Dr. Staten up in Cookeville, helped to run a larger group of physicians, or organize, I guess is a better way to say it, a bunch of independent physicians in rural communities all throughout really middle Tennessee for the most part. We have physicians in about 30 counties. We see patients in about 50 counties.
Mm-hmm.
We've got some affiliations with some other physicians in about another 15 counties. So anyway, we do have interaction with physicians from all over the state
Mm-hmm.
in the vast majority of the counties of the state. So we do have some contact and feedback with what's
Mm-hmm.
happening really around the state as well, and trying
All
to
right.
keep them up to date on a lot of the changes happening. So
Awesome.
anyway, that's who I am and what I do, and there you
So
have it.
you are heavily connected to a lot of conversations around us and about the coronavirus, and we appreciate you being connected in those networks. Hey, just on a side note, in the Facebook feed, Aaron Webb says, "Hi, Dad." And so say hi back to your son.
Hello, Aaron. That's pretty
And,
cool.
yeah.
Look forward to seeing you guys tomorrow.
Oh, sweet, sweet. Family get togethers for Memorial Day are wonderful. And so, for anybody who has any questions that wants to ask Dr. Ty, you're welcome to put them in the Facebook feed chat, and I'll make sure to let him know. He can't see that, but I can. And so, I'll let him know when that comes through. But I've got just a couple of questions for Dr. Ty. And, me always trying to be Mr. Positive. And Ty, I'm just curious, what are some of the positive things you have seen in light of the pandemic and where we are now?
Yeah, kind of interesting. Certainly, if you watch the news, which quite honestly I try not to, um, it gets a little depressing. But there are some interesting positives that I've observed from this whole situation, and it's a lot of it has to do with kind of being thrown out of our routine or our norm, and not taking things for granted that I see people around. I'll use we as a people, as a culture, taking things for granted. We can't do that anymore, and so we're sort of having to rethink how we do certain things. Obviously, masks, hand sanitizing. How do we go to the store?
Mhm.
How do you pump gas? How do you access the bank, the restaurant? All those things have changed, and we're all familiar with that.
Mhm.
And it's been a global phenomenon. We're not talking about just a Tennessee or United States phenomenon. This is global,
Very
which
true.
is really fascinating. But there are some positives, and I have run across a couple of news stories about how the planet is cleaner,
Mhm.
cleaner air, cleaner water. There's
Mhm.
satellite images where smog is less and pollution is less. Pretty fascinating.
Yeah.
Early on, we saw in Venice where the canals cleared up, and you could actually see fish swimming around in the canals of Venice, which was kind of cool. um, wildlife popping up in places where people hadn't seen it before,
Mhm.
or at least not in a long time. So that's been kind of neat to see that. I think that on a human level, it's been good for relationships because it has taken us again out of our sort of normal routine, and I, for one, anyway, have found new connection or maybe new meaning with people more in my local environment.
Mhm.
Um, so I've noticed over the last several years with the advent of phenomenal communication abilities, even like what we're doing now, that I tend to take the people around me for granted, and then I tend to reach out and communicate with people beyond maybe a little bit more. um, and so that's actually changed. Even though we still have this type of communication available, it's not like it's gone. But I seem to be connecting more with the people closer to me physically, family, people at work. We're just communicating differently. I would say better than we had before. So from that standpoint, it's been nice. And let's see, I wrote down, what else did I write down here? Oh, yeah, just because we can't go and like do all the things we used to doing and going and being. The world has slowed down.
Mhm.
Um, it, my kids, maybe all kids when they were little, life was a little bit slower and more nuclear with the family, if they were blessed in that way. But um, the I think the world has speeded up, just in terms of everything's instantaneous. So, when something happens in China, we know about it within minutes, not
Mhm.
days or weeks. And so, with everyone sort of, and there's been some economic hardship, which is on the bad side, but on the good side, with us slowing down, I've got more time to spend with people. I've got more time to spend in prayer. I've got more time, and
Mhm.
it's shocked me into a sense of realization that I was caught up running on a little hamster wheel, in essence, sort of that image. Um, so, from a positive standpoint, just personally, I'm going to make some changes so that I am able to hang on to some of that peace that seems to be lost in this world of overdrive.
Mhm. So you've seen some big benefits overall within the entire world, but also within your personal life in slowing down and being more intentional in our relationships and how we take care of things and people. And so we really appreciate that. And yeah, there are a lot of benefits. If we're looking, we can find them. Obviously, there's a lot of hardship and trial that's come out of this. And that's what dominates the news stories for sure. And so now, our church, you're an elder at our church for anybody who doesn't know. In Churches of Christ, we don't have a governing board over groups of churches. We're all autonomous, and our church chooses to have an eldership, um, like what we see over in First Timothy chapter, in First Timothy and Titus. And um, so you're one of our elders, and our elders have decided that we are continuing with a drive-in service in our parking lot and broadcasting on radio station 98.3 for anyone that's near our church building at 10 a.m. And so talk to me about why our church is doing that, why you gentlemen have chosen that route when, for the most part, in the Upper Cumberland, we're seeing something very different in churches. And so why this response?
Well, it's a great question, and everybody wants things to go back to normal. I've heard that stated many times. When is it going to go back to normal? Well, this is normal. Normal is now. There's always a bit of nostalgia, I think, that we have for the good things we remember from the past. We tend to forget the things that weren't so great.
Mhm.
But the reality is we're in a new normal, and so the virus is still present. This coronavirus that's caused all the havoc hasn't gone away. And right now, there's really no reliable way medically to know who is susceptible and who is not. And so we all would like that. Um, there's a lot been said about testing, if you've been exposed or had it, or maybe if you get a vaccine, maybe will you be immune? We don't know. We just don't know. And there's data on both sides of that fence. So right now there is no reliable way to know who is susceptible and who is not. So because of that, the safest thing to do is to assume that you are susceptible, that I am susceptible, that the people that I contact are susceptible, that I could be carrying this coronavirus and not know it, because we know that a large number, some say 60%, some say 80% of people that can test positive don't know it. They don't feel anything. So those are carriers. So I could be walking around and spreading this, and if I don't use the universal precautions that we've talked about, the social distancing precautions is kind of the terminology. So whether that's wearing a mask or washing hands or both, or staying 6 feet away or further, basically limiting unnecessary exposures, then I run the risk of exposing others, or by the same token being exposed myself. And that's a risk that we can mitigate, that we can decrease, that we can change. And there are some people who are perfectly healthy who are going to get this and die from it. There are some who are perfectly healthy who are going to get this and be critically injured, I guess is probably the best way to say it. And they may survive it. And then there'll be some people who are very sick who have a mild to a nothing case but test positive. Just a lot we don't know.
Yeah.
So why, as a church, are we doing drive-in service and not meeting in our building? I've said this.
Oh no, it froze again. And we're going to see if Ty's connection comes on. I know, as I've listened to elders, our elders pray every Tuesday night. They get together and they discuss the newest data on coronavirus. And we're blessed to have a doctor among our elders, as well as some very intelligent men, some younger, some older, and all with vested interest in care for God's people and care for honoring God. And so our elders have chosen that we are doing drive-in services. We have a parking lot that is well equipped for it, that is perfect for it, where you can come in and park and actually see someone on top of the platform oh, pardon me while I look at the comments going through, on top of the platform on our carport. And so you can see it as well. We broadcast on the radio station, and Ty's iPad is coming back in. And so we broadcast on a radio station. I know for our elders, they looked at that and said, wow, people can safely gather in our parking lot, rain or shine, and see that. And Ty, we lost your feed, and I hate that. I know that you were just starting to address where our church was and why we were choosing the drive-in service.
Yeah. So I talked about the no reliable way to know who's susceptible, right?
Yes.
Yep, okay. So talking about, specific to Central, the elders have met repeatedly and continually on this issue, and we actually address it at least weekly. Frequently, it's more often than weekly. But the bottom line is, church is the people. Now, most Christians believe that. Most Christians believe that the church is the people and not the building. It's not the location of the meeting. We colloquial, I can't say that word. Oh, we tend to say, that's pretty bad. I'm going to practice that. We tend to say that, I'm going to church, which, there may not be a church meeting, but we're talking about the building. Right, and, we know that, all right. But the reality is, church is the people. Any church can continue to function and thrive regardless of whether or not we all sing together in the same room. That is not a requirement for a church to function and thrive. We can worship, and we can worship together, actually, with technology or in the parking lot or some other means. We can worship in how we conduct our lives. We can communicate with one another without all climbing in the same room and singing together. So we all like to do that. We enjoy it. It really is. It's uplifting, but it's not necessary for us to function as God's children. So the drive-in church still allows this very human need for connection. And it's a little bit more personable than like this, on a screen. And that's nice. It's nice to be able to see people face to face. We do still wear masks. You'll see if you watch the feed of our church service, those of us walking around wear masks. When we approach somebody in a vehicle, 9 times out of 10, the person in the vehicle has a mask on too, which is nice.
Yeah, you have a friend that's real loud over there. That's great. A froggy
Yeah,
friend.
that tree frog decided to start calling its neighbors.
It's all good. Keep going, Ty.
Wow.
I appreciate it. God's creation's awesome.
Yeah, he's very loud. It is pretty cool. So that's why we're doing drive-in church. That's why we're not meeting in person. The virus is still here, and it's local. It's local.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And for anybody that's watching that attends other churches, just want to throw out a couple of ideas for you. We have been doing the birthday drive-by honkings. I text message all of our church members and let them know on the day of a birthday what address they can go to at 4 p.m. between 4 and 5 and go honk at people's houses. And so what we're doing is making connections when we might not choose to do it inside a room, a big building with all of us together. We're making connections between that 4 to 5 time period. We've also gone and sung outside the windows of our nursing home residents. And so we know where they are, and the nursing staff helps us know where they are, and we sing right outside their windows and ask them for song requests, and they sing right along with us. And so again, it's drawing personal connections. We're staying in small groups when we do that. And so we've tried to find multiple ways to draw personal connections. And there are elders and our ministers and our many of our church members have endeavored to go visit everybody on their doorstep as well and stay on the doorstep, respectful distance, just to keep, once again, personal connections. So, Ty, you mentioned, can churches, you answered and said, yes, churches can maintain personal connections. That's just some of the ways that we have, and I hope that's helpful. And you guys feel free to put in the comments on the Facebook feed if you have any ideas on how churches can keep personal connections during this time. And if you guys have any questions in the Facebook feed, feel free to ask them, and we'll ask them to Dr. Ty. So, Ty, here's one of the hot questions that people have asked lately. All right. We saw in the New York Times that Putnam County is the number 4 rated hotspot in the United States as of Friday, I believe. What does that mean to us, and how does that affect us here in White County and the Upper Cumberland?
Sure. Well, we've been anticipating, not in a positive way, but realistically anticipating that this virus would begin to make its way out of population dense areas into less population dense areas. It seems to be a very contagious virus. Mm-hmm. And so as people have connections and they travel to other areas, we tend to see it spread. Mm-hmm. That appears to be the mechanism of initial spread from China to all the other areas where it went. Mm-hmm. Population density is why we tend to see it in larger cities. Mm-hmm. New York City is very dense population wise, and it's no surprise there was a huge outbreak there. But now we're starting to see it spread into smaller communities, and that's not a surprise, but it is sobering because we tend to think when it's not right here upon us that we don't have to maybe worry about it so much. Mm-hmm. And in the initial stages, it wasn't here, and so we were able to continue to carry on our lives in a way that didn't reflect what was happening in some metropolitan areas around the world. We were still going to the grocery store, still eating at restaurants, still meeting at church like our usual. But then that changed. And so for the last 6 to 8 weeks or so, we've been trying to be more cautious. Our governor released several statements trying to control the spread and keep our citizens safe. And, they're trying to balance the health and the economic side of it, because there's the potential for a lot of economic suffering from this virus, potentially even more than just the health implications. Mm-hmm. And I understand that. I'm very thankful I'm not an elected official because that's an extremely difficult position to be in. So what we're seeing now is the spread in the rural areas. And we're initially seeing it in communities of people who tend to stay close together. So certainly we've seen outbreaks in populations that can't get away from each other. Prison populations, huge outbreaks all over the country. Nursing home outbreaks, some we've seen those. And we're starting to see it in other types of communities, whether it be family groups, in some cases church groups. And some church groups are finding it wise to meet together. Okay, that's a question each group has to answer for themselves. I'm certainly not going to sit in judgment of anyone. I'm just going to offer my perspective and my opinion. But because we're seeing this spread now in Putnam County, and a very rapid spread, it has significant implications for the counties surrounding Putnam County, because it does act as a sort of hub of commerce and interaction. And so for White County, we have a lot of interaction on a daily basis with Putnam County. So I expect we're going to see our numbers start to increase in White County as well. And where we have not seen a lot of illness and very little severe illness here locally, unfortunately, I believe we're going to start to see that. I was up in Putnam County quite a bit over the last couple of days, actually over the last week. And on almost every occasion, when I would go into a public area, whether it be a gas station or a retail store, I was in the vast minority of people that had on a mask. Just a very simple thing, a mask. That's it. Super simple to do, and yet people are, in my mind, throwing caution to the wind and saying that doesn't apply to me. It'll all be fine. Well, okay, you can roll the dice with your own health. I get that. Right. Because of that, we're seeing a rapid rise in the number of cases. But what you may not realize is you're also rolling the dice with the health of other people, because you may not get sick, but somebody else who you may give this virus to might get very sick. It's not hard to wear a mask and to wash your hands. It really isn't.
Let me summarize real quick.
Yeah,
So
sure.
from what I'm hearing from you, so this is not the rise in Putnam County. People have asked, well, is this part of the hospital? Is this because of prison? Is this because of a nursing home? This is not a localized outbreak of people who are very localized. This is a general spread throughout Putnam County.
It is.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so
the
only way to contain that once it hits, and as I was looking at the numbers, it looks like an exponential increase again. Me being a math teacher, I know the difference between a linear and an exponential, and it looks like we've hit the exponential in Putnam County.
Yeah, there's several counties around the country that's happening in, but this one happens to be in our back door. And so it has significant implications for the health of the people in our immediate region, in our immediate county here, Sparta and White County, but actually our whole region here. And if you happen to be in a county or a region somewhere else in the country and you're picking up on this feed, there's counties all over the country. Most states have a few where this exponential rise is occurring. As part of a population phenomenon, not a prison population or something else, like you said.
I gotcha.
So it comes down to individuals looking out and taking care of themselves and each other.
Yeah, and just in case anybody's wondering, the spread of Putnam County, Cookeville near us is a central hub, and all the surrounding counties. We're in White County. We're one county south, and I was up there getting kayak supplies for an adventure I've got coming up. You guys will hear more about that on social media in the next week. But grabbing kayak supplies at Academy Sports and ran into people who were from Spencer, which is another county south of us. And so I've run into people from DeKalb County and Van Buren County all the way up in Cookeville. And so the connections for Cookeville are pretty wide reaching, since we don't have another major city within an hour and a half of us. So anybody within a 45-minute radius travels into and out of Cookeville. So you mentioned that personal accountability is the only way to combat that exponential rate we're seeing. All right. So fill us in, and I have a feeling it's going to be the exact same as what you said on March 13th. All right. So what do we do? What do we do
Well,
if we're in a surrounding county?
yep. Number one, we keep calm. We maintain those daily um, routines, those daily habits
Mm-hmm.
that facilitate a calm and ordered lifestyle. There's no need to panic. When we go out, whether we have to for work or whether we need to for supplies or whether we just happen to be out, we need to maintain the social distancing and protection guidelines.
Mm-hmm.
Wear a mask. If you're standing outside and there's people, not within 6 to 12 feet of you, that's fine. Don't put your mask on outside.
Yeah.
But if you're in a crowd, wear a mask. If you go in a building, any sort of building, wear a mask.
Mm-hmm.
This virus can hover in the air for a while, hours in some studies. So just because no one else is in that room when you're in that room doesn't mean the virus isn't in that room. So you could still pick it up,
Yeah.
unfortunately. So wear a mask and sanitize your hands. If you can wash them, wash them. If not, sanitize them. And rubbing alcohol works if you can find it. Ethanol works very well.
Really?
Yeah. Most people use that for consumption, but drinking alcohol or ethanol is a fantastic bactericidal agent and virucidal agent. It
Mm-hmm.
kills little microorganisms extremely well. So sanitize and wear a mask. It's really that simple.
Mm-hmm. Great. And that's exactly what you said in March. So it hasn't changed. What seems to have changed is our habits as we have gotten comfortable with where we are um, in our area. So Ty, I appreciate your perspective on that, and let's keep hoping, praying, and working towards bringing that rise back down for our area. You made mention back in March in your interview on the 13th. You made mention that this will likely reach every household before it's said and done. How do you feel about that statement? Is that still in your prediction path?
Unfortunately, I think there's a strong likelihood of that. One of the things that's gotten a lot of discussion and quite honestly a lot of hope is this idea of herd immunity.
Mm-hmm.
If we get enough people who have been exposed and are developing some resistance to it, antibodies, so
Mm-hmm.
that they theoretically can't be reinfected, then perhaps the rapid spread from person to person will slow down or even fizzle out.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like the difference between throwing a match on a dry field and throwing a match on a field in the morning dew.
Mm-hmm.
One of those things causes a catastrophic fire, and the other one fizzles out. And so we're hoping that the herd immunity, um, um, I guess, possibility does come to fruition.
Mm-hmm.
In which case, we may not see it reach into every household. But I think every household right now still needs to plan that they are susceptible and could be affected.
Mm-hmm. I appreciate that. Every household needs to plan that way, at least. Hey, Melissa Henry on our Facebook feed asks a great question, and I've seen a lot of data going back and forth and headlines on this. She said, I've seen articles that say people with asthma should not wear masks. Is that true? Ty, what do you know about some of the breathing difficulties and some of the mask data we're seeing?
That's a great question. Um, uh, there's been a lot of Janet and I, in fact, had this discussion today. We saw an interesting social media post from a convenience store where a patron had walked in with the middle of the mask cut out because it was hard to breathe. I'm like, why are you even wearing a mask if you cut out the middle part? Because that's, right? I mean,
Yeah,
somebody's not thinking.
yeah.
Uh, so the reality is there's an emotional component to this. I can't breathe. I can't breathe. Well, yes, you can. I have asthma as well. I've worn a mask for years when I mow the yard. I've worn a mask in surgery for years. And you just have to get used to that being on your face. Some people have true panic attacks. That's different.
Right.
You cannot control a panic attack. So if that's you, don't let anybody shame you. Panic attacks are real. Anxiety is real. But this this preference where you don't like to have something on your face, that's different. And that's something that you can overcome. You just have to get used to it. I have lots and lots of patients with advanced respiratory disease, whether that be emphysema, COPD, asthma, you name it, many of them on oxygen. And most of those patients do just fine with a mask. Most of those patients do just fine with even a CPAP mask, but even with these N95 or other maybe homemade coronavirus masks, they do fine. You can still breathe through a mask. Carbon dioxide still gets out. Oxygen still gets in. So those are very tiny molecules. Oxygen and carbon dioxide are much smaller than a virus particle, much smaller. And so those gases diffuse through the mask. Will you get a little hotter and will your face sweat? Yeah, it will.
For sure. Yeah.
It will. Do we like that? No, not really. We've had some of our employees who, just because of their facial contour, the mask rubs on their lips, and it's actually created little sores on their lips. Well, we don't want that. So you kind of have to work with your mask contour and figure that out. I'm blessed. I've got a gigantic nose, so it keeps my mask off my lips. Never thought I'd be blessed. Never thought that would be a blessing, I should say.
Thank God for big noses. Yeah, you and I have the same blessing there.
Yeah. So anyway, that's masks. Wear them. They may be uncomfortable, but wear them.
Yeah, I appreciate that perspective. Yeah, as someone who struggled with, I had pneumonia 26 times, 23 times. I visited the doctor, 4 times hospitalized for it. My lungs they're just messed up. I had asthma, used to have the inhaler a lot, and yeah, my mask. I don't enjoy my mask at all, but I got used to wearing them when I did a lot of sanding and painting in my wood shop. So I just made myself get used to it because I didn't want to suck those fumes, and I do okay with it. So yeah, some of the carbon dioxide information that I'm seeing looks a little bit challenging and maybe needs a little more research.
Yeah. So you may remember, or if you've ever encountered someone who is hyperventilating, the age-old treatment is to give them a paper bag and tell them to breathe in the paper bag.
Yeah.
And the theory there is that the carbon dioxide won't escape the bag. The problem with hyperventilation is you blow all the carbon dioxide out of your body, it changes your acid-base balance, and you pass out. So that's kind of the underlying problem. So by breathing into a bag that doesn't let the carbon dioxide out of the bag, you rebreathe it. And so at least keeps your blood levels more stable. So plastic bag or paper bag, that sort of thing works for that. I think some people are equating that with a lot of these masks, but they're not. It's not the same.
No. Yeah, as a mask user for years in a wood shop, yeah, it's not the same. And I appreciate that. And if anybody else has any other questions, Melissa Henry says, thank you. Make sure you guys post them in the Facebook feed. And thank you, Melissa, for posting that question there. Ty, one of the things we wanted to ask is for our medical workers, what's life like for our medical workers? I know you're connected to a lot of nurses and doctors and you at Cumberland Family Care Practice, you are the primary care provider there. So tell us what life is like and how we can be praying for you guys, how we can serve you guys.
Well, prayer, most definitely. And it's true for the folks in the medical community. It's really true for all of us right now. We need to be attentive to our neighbors. We need to be praying for our neighbors. We need to be reaching out to our neighbors. I mentioned earlier that in addition to the viral health implications, the economic implications and suffering are likely to far exceed the actual health suffering. We may not see that until this fall when the winter gets here, but I'm a little concerned about that.
Yeah.
People are out of work. That's a problem. And that's going to create some serious issues. So yeah, healthcare personnel need prayer for sure, but not us exclusively. We're all in this together. And so each person reach out, help your neighbor. That's what we're trying to do. We've been blessed in that we've not had serious healthcare worker infections occur locally anyway.
Right.
I've got a good friend over in rural East Tennessee who was lucky to survive. And his community is not that different than ours. He just happened to pick it up randomly from somebody he was in a meeting with. And
Wow.
he ended up on a ventilator for a couple of weeks, in a hospital for 3 to 4 weeks. Then he had to go to rehab. He's struggling to get back to work. He's a physician. So it does strike healthcare personnel, but it also strikes anybody. And so we all need to remember that we are indeed in this together. And I'm extremely thankful for my nurses that come to work every day. And they are following all the protocols to the letter. And we just hope and pray every day that we don't get infected doing what we do. But folks in food service, same thing. Folks who are doing housekeeping in facilities where there's lots of people, same thing. High risk for infection there. Folks that are just working with people on a daily basis. You know this, and working with people. So we all need that prayer. Hope that answered that question.
I appreciate that. Thank you. And again, if anybody has any questions, you guys can put them in our Facebook feed. And
I didn't mention teachers either, by the way.
Oh goodness,
School's out right now, so teachers are doing a lot of their teaching online, which is extremely challenging. Having spoken with several, when the decisions are made as far as getting back in the classroom, that's going to be a challenging situation as well. So I know that the educational profession is really wrestling now with what to do. I know some colleges have canceled classes, some are continuing on. There's sort of a mixed bag. What to do with public schools, big difficulties. So pray for those folks. There are some really, really difficult decisions to be made in those situations.
And Ty, you know well because your lovely bride has been on the school board for years. And so she has got experience in this, and you guys are well connected in the area. So I would say over the summertime, especially, we need to be praying for principals and administrators and school district directors because they are not going to be slowing down here over the summer. They're not going to get that kind of break as they try to adjust and transition and watch these stats and try and figure out what it means for the local community schools. A lot going on there. So thank you. I think to summarize everything you said, we need to keep praying for everybody around us. And because we are all impacted. And as you said, we're all in this together. Ty, I love the Harding University shirt that you're wearing. And I'm going to speak at Harding University in the fall at their lectureships. And I'm promoting or teaching how to build simple but effective church websites for some of those smaller churches that don't have an online presence and need one. So I'm excited to go to Harding University there in Searcy, Arkansas. And Ty, tell me why you're wearing the Harding University shirt.
Well, I'm a graduate of Harding. So I spent 4 years in Searcy. And it was a wonderful 4 years. It was very important for me, developmental-wise and education-wise. So I had a good time there. I'm also wearing it for another reason because folks that may be watching this either now or maybe watching it later, everybody identifies in a certain way, and each of our spheres of influence in our communities and sort of how we look at ourselves varies. And so sometimes it's from the college that we went to, and let's see if I can make this work here. Sometimes it's another school that we went to. I happened to go to UT med school, and so that's another I guess name that I claim or something that I identify with. But not just schools, but we also can identify with. This is also a school, not a school that I've been to. School that you almost went to.
Visited there.
Yep, Rose Holman. Got a good friend that went there, and it's also a really good school, but got to give them a shout out.
Yeah, shout out to those Indiana people.
Yeah, absolutely. Some of us just identify as an American. We're just a citizen of the United States of America, or maybe not even a citizen yet, maybe just a resident. So that may be how we identify, and that's great because we are living in a wonderful country. Some of us identify, maybe with superheroes. We may see that. I don't know if you can see that. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Good job, Superman.
Some of us, may have this superhero. Maybe we just like watching the comics or the movies or whatever. Sometimes they're out of this world. Sometimes it's just a regular guy that got bit by a spider, and so he's got some sort of special powers or something like that, or maybe he was volunteering for the military, and all he ever wanted to do was serve his country, and he became a superhero in the process. We all identify with these folks in different ways, and each person sort of has their own way of looking at themselves. Maybe it's not a superhero. Maybe it's a sci-fi series like Star Trek. That's been pretty popular since the 1960s, and that's okay. Now there is probably a better one out there, in my humble opinion. But I would say, Star Wars is, the true space opera trilogy, or not even trilogy anymore. It's golly, it goes on forever and ever. So some of us identify more with that, and whether you're a fan of the light side or the dark side, nonetheless, it's all part of the story. But we look at these things and we say, well, I just identify in different ways. Maybe I'm a cyclist, maybe I like exercise. Some of us see ourselves as athletes. Very thankful we don't make our living that way, although we may enjoy it. Some of us may like running and swimming too, and do triathlons and that sort of thing. And that may be a way that we identify. We wear lots of different names. Some of us may like soccer. I don't know if you can see this, but this is a Mexican soccer jersey. So, maybe we identify with a club that's not local, maybe not even in our nation. Maybe we do like to wear our national colors. That's cool. We identify, again, as an American. We like the sports of America. We don't know if those will start back up this fall or not. We'll have to wait and see on that. But, maybe it's a little bit more local. Maybe, in this case, Chattanooga. There's some regional clubs out there. So shout out to the Chattanooga Football Club. Ultimately, I think it all comes back to just where you are, just your local community. And those are the people that you interact with regularly. Those are the people that know you. In many cases, those are the people that you know and love as well. And we all have that responsibility to take care of each other where we are.
In the end,
regardless of what name you put on.
In the end, it all comes down to taking care of your neighbor. Loving your neighbor. Hey, that sounds like a good Bible sermon. Loving your neighbor as yourself.
I've heard that before. One of the greatest two, I don't know, something like that.
All right. I can definitely say that is the first time I have ever interviewed a doctor that disrobed in the interview. Congratulations. And thanks for doing it. What a great illustration. No matter who you identify with, where you identify, what time period you identify, it all does come down to taking care of each other.
Yeah.
Where you're at. Well, thanks, Ty. I appreciate that. Well, Ty, that takes care of all the questions that were posted within our Facebook feed, and people may send those out later on as they rewatch this video and these interviews. And if you guys do, we'll try and get them to Ty and try and get an answer back to you. And Ty, I just want to thank you so much. Thanks for spending an hour with me here. And thanks for sweltering in all of those shirts outside. And
it did get warm.
Yeah. Appreciate you putting up with the tree frog out there. And Ty, I hope you and your family have a very blessed weekend, celebrate Memorial Day together and remembering those who have gone on before us and sacrificed for us.
Amen.
And in the midst of it all, I want to remember Jesus, who definitely fought the hardest battle, sacrificing for us and giving his life for us. And hope everybody spends tomorrow as a memorial honoring him, no matter whether you're going inside a building or meeting in a parking lot like us, or watching at home on a live stream, or listening in on a phone system like our churches. And so no matter where you are, tomorrow is memorial to Jesus. And so, Ty, would you mind closing in a prayer to our Savior?
Happy to. Father, we do thank you so much for being, again, our God, but the one true and living God, the creator and sustainer of this world, this universe, everything that we can know and see and experience. Father, you're there, you're in it all, you're the author of it all. And Father, for despite all this amazing power and presence, you love each one of us individually. You know us better than we know ourselves. You're constantly working towards our good, even though we tend to oppose you so many times. Father, we do ask for your forgiveness. I ask for your forgiveness. Father, I'm so thankful for the blood of your Son, my Savior, Jesus Christ. And Father, I thank you for providing for us at all times, not just walking beside us, but carrying us through the hard times. Father, I ask that your presence would be felt even more, and especially, Father, by those who are struggling and suffering in the wake of the what's happened with this whole pandemic and the effects on our lives. Father, I earnestly hope and pray that hearts and minds will turn towards you, and that once again, as a people, we will understand that love triumphs all, as you've shown us. Father, thank you for your Son. Thank you for your Spirit. It's in his name we pray. Amen.
Amen. And your froggy friend says amen too.
That he does.
Well, for Ty and everybody that has joined us online, we thank you so much for your time. Hope you have a blessed weekend, and we love you.
Good night.
Bye-bye. All righty.